Hello everyone, hope you're having a great day. Today's video will be another vehicle tier list, but this time for Twisted Metal 4. The vehicles within each tier are ordered, but I believe they could be interchanged depending on playstyle, preferences, or certain situations. I'm sure many of you will have opinions that differ from mine, and I'd love to read about them in the comments section below. Also, I'll be leaving out the creator car vehicles as there are so many different combinations that I feel it would simply oversaturate the list. With all that being said, this will be a longer video, so sit back, make yourself comfortable as we dive into the list, starting at the bottom. The character with the unfortunate honor of both starting my list and being the only character in D tier, we have MICROBLAST. I'm sure it isn't a huge surprise to many of you who have played this game that we're seeing MICROBLAST rank this poorly. He's certainly usable, but he's not very fun to play and his special weapon isn't anything great. It's basically just a slightly better version of the speed missiles, which to me is a weapon I don't find myself itching to use very often. He's a minuscule armor stat, making it harder to survive long fights as easily as some of the other characters in the roster. The one undeniably good aspect about MICROBLAST is the high speed and handling, but it's just that there are other characters with similar levels of elusiveness who also have better armor and a better special weapon. All of this has me believing that MICROBLAST deserves his lone spot in the D tier. Beginning the C tier, we have the RoboCop inspired character QUATRO. Also, quick side note, this happened to me while recording footage for this video and I thought it was hilarious. QUATRO kind of disappoints me as a vehicle, simply because his special weapon is so lacking. It's the same sort of special you could expect from an AXEL type character, where he emits a small burst around his vehicle. The problem with it is the damage output is incredibly lacking. Sure, it sets the enemies on fire as well, and that adds a bit of damage over time, but still, it just doesn't seem worth it at all, considering you have to get close to enemies to use it, and QUATRO doesn't have very good armor. It kind of feels like you're playing Mr. Grimm from previous titles, but with a watered down version of Axel's special attack. It just doesn't make for a super great vehicle in my opinion, and it's why QUATRO is placed in the bottom of C tier. The next character on my list is Drag Queen. This vehicle has a special reminiscent of Thumpers, where fire is streamed out in front of the vehicle. The issue with this special in particular is that it doesn't seem to do much damage at all when pointed and held at enemies. It seems to only have use for setting them on fire and letting them take damage over time that way, which is kinda just lame and not very impactful. The rest of the stats for the vehicle are fine and it's certainly usable. There are just much better options to choose in Twisted Metal 4. Coming next in the C tier is Captain GRIMM. Right off the bat, this is easily one of the worst iterations of the GRIMM character, right besides his Twisted Metal 3 appearance. He isn't in a motorcycle this time, but he still retains the high speed and handling the GRIMM character has always been known for. Where this iteration lacks is the special weapon. The special weapon here shoots out a fiery cannonball that deals damage and sets enemies ablaze upon impact. The issue with it is the upfront damage just isn't anywhere close to what you would expect from a Mr. Grimm character. It does pretty low damage and has a bit of fire damage over time added to it. I would much prefer if the special was more like previous titles and just did a ton of damage on impact and that's it. For these reasons, Captain GRIMM is placed firmly in the C tier. Following GRIMM in the C tier, we have Pizza Boy. I really have a connection with this character, as I myself was once a pizza delivery driver driving a Honda Civic, so it's like a perfect fit. Unfortunately, I don't think the character is anything special gameplay-wise. His special attack sends out 2 homing blades that seek out enemies. The issue with this attack is the damage output is pretty low, making it not very useful. The homing is pretty good on the blades, but it's just that the damage is so lacking. Other than that, I think Pizza Boy is a fine character, just one with a mediocre special attack, which is what lands him in the C tier. Finishing off the cast of C tiers, we have MAID. MAID is a character that lacks both a big armor and big speed stat to instead have a very interesting but not super useful special weapon. The special is similar to Outlaws from previous games, where nearby enemies are shocked with electrical beams. The difference in this game is that when you hit opponents with this, you actually siphon their life and heal yourself while damaging them, which I think is really cool. You don't get a ton of health from this, and the damage on it isn't amazing, but it's still an easy to use damaging tool that also heals you at the same time. I feel like that's enough to bring MAID to the top of C tier. Beginning the B tier, we have the Joneses. They have pretty balanced stats, with an easy to use but not super impactful special weapon. The special attack is similar to Warthogs from previous games, where the Joneses fire 3 homing missiles at enemies. The only issue with this attack is the damage output can be pretty lacking for what it is. If this attack did a bit more damage, I believe the Joneses could be an A tier vehicle, as the rest of their stats are pretty good, but as they stand, I feel like they belong in the B tier. Following up in the B tier is General Warthog. He has great armor, but low speed to balance it out. His special weapon is very unique in this game and functions similarly to a remote bomb. General Warthog places a marker on the ground, and upon reactivation, a giant laser is fired from the sky at the marker to damage opponents. This attack actually does some pretty good damage, but it isn't the easiest or most intuitive special to use. These factors had me believing that General Warthog belongs in the B tier. Up next in the B tier, we have Crusher. He's the first of many characters we will see who have a special attack that holds the opponent out in front of them, then throws them away once the attack is finished. This sort of special attack is certainly very usable, as once you've captured an enemy, you can switch to your other weapons and continue to pummel them while they are still helplessly stuck in your grasp. The only downside to pretty much all of these character types, including Crusher, are the low speed, handling, and bigger size, making it harder to avoid enemy assaults. Spoiler alert, but we're about to see quite a few of this character type coming up in the rankings. Up next is Super Auger. His special attack is very similar to Crusher's, where he can hold an enemy directly in front of him, pelt them with weapons, then throw them away once the attack is finished. Honestly, there really isn't much else to say, as he's very similar to Crusher, as are the next two entrants in my rankings. Following up Super Auger in this speed round of sorts is Trash Man. He places here for the same reasons that the previous two entrants have. He has the same sort of special attack with basically the same strengths and weaknesses as the others. Really isn't much else to say, besides he's certainly a serviceable vehicle and a good choice for a playthrough of the game. The last entrant in our speed round is Super SLAMM. Once again, he has the same strengths and weaknesses as the previous three entrants on the list. I really believe that all of these characters could be placed in any order, and I would be fine with it, as I think they all function and play basically the same. They're all good vehicles to pick and have clear strengths that can be exploited to ensure easy victories. The final entrant within the B tier is Goggle Eyes. This extermination truck is a really solid choice due to its high armor and easy to use special weapon. The special attack has toxic green gas fired from the front of the vehicle for a few seconds, and it does pretty decent damage. Much like the previous entrants on the list, you can activate the special attack, then switch weapons, and fire additional weapons at enemies while the special attack is going off for some big damage. The high armor, paired with a reliable special weapon, brings Goggle Eyes to the top of B tier in my rankings. Starting off the cast of A tier characters, we have Mr. Zombie, the Rob Zombie insert character. First, I just like to say that I think it's both hilarious and awesome that Rob Zombie is literally in this game as a playable character, and his ending is basically just a music video. As a vehicle, Mr. Zombie functions pretty well, and he has a good special attack to utilize. The special fires a red skull that zaps nearby enemies and explodes at the end of its duration. The special is really good for trapping an enemy in place and can also even hit multiple enemies at once. These factors had me believing that Mr. Zombie deserves his placement in the A tier. Following Mr. Zombie, we have RC Car. RC Car is basically MICROBLAST if he was actually good. The special attack shoots a short-ranged beam in front of the vehicle, and it actually does pretty good damage, as well as sets the enemy on fire for a bit of extra damage. RC Car has great speed and handling to pair with this, it just lacks the big armor stat. The special can be a bit tricky to use sometimes with the stickier feeling controls of Twisted Metal 4, but it's not too hard to land once you get used to it. All of these factors have me believing that RC Car deserves its spot in the A tier. Up next in the A tier, we have Orbital. Orbital's a very solid character that has good speed, but slightly lacking armor to balance it out. The special weapon acts much like Mr. Zombie's special, except instead of knocking enemies away at the end of the attack, it freezes them, allowing for more follow-up attacks. This is extremely useful in plenty of situations and can really lock down an enemy and make it so that they can't fight back at all for a long time. It can also hit multiple opponents, which is a nice bonus to have. All of these factors lead me to believe that Orbital should be placed firmly within the A tier. Following Orbital in the A tier is Super AXEL. He functions similarly in this game as he does in previous titles, with the special attack being a short-range burst that also happens to set enemies on fire in this game. He's just really solid in this title, and enemies love driving right up next to you, putting them in range to get hit by the special attack. There isn't much else to say besides he doesn't do as much ramming damage as he does in a game like Twisted Metal 2, but that's the case in all of the 989 studio games. Ramming damage just isn't that important. Not much else to say, just an all-around good character to use. Capping off the A tier and starting the top 5 is CALYPSO in his first and only playable appearance within a Twisted Metal game. His special weapon is pretty over the top, as he fires a literal nuclear bomb at opponents. It makes the game's frame rate drop like crazy, and I love it. It also does quite a lot of damage if you can manage to detonate it close enough to an enemy. The downside to CALYPSO is his slower speed and large size, making him quite the easy target for opponents to fire at. Still, CALYPSO is extremely powerful and deserves his spot at the top of the A tier. Starting off the S tier in the number 4 spot, we have Super THUMPER. He acts much like his Twisted Metal 2 iteration in this game, where his special attack shoots a powerful stream of flames from the front of the vehicle. Unlike Drag Queen's special, Super THUMPER's does immense damage if you manage to keep an enemy engulfed in the flames of the attack, and can easily melt enemy health bars. Super THUMPER is just an incredibly powerful vehicle with the ability to delete any opponent unfortunate enough to get caught in the attack. Coming in at the number 3 spot is BUGGY. The boss of Neon City is one of the most powerful vehicles in the game in my opinion, as his special weapon is super easy to use and does great damage. The special sends out 2 homing quasars to harass enemies and drain their health. The great thing about this attack is just how easy it is to use, meaning you never really waste it by missing or anything like that. On top of that, BUGGY is pretty durable and has decent speed, making him extremely versatile and a great choice for a playthrough of the game. Finishing off the S tier in the number 2 spot, we have MINION. MINION has great survivability, speed, and an extremely useful special weapon to utilize. The special is very similar to previous iterations of Minion's special, where a group of missiles along with a freeze are sent at enemies. This attack is incredibly powerful, and the freeze that goes along with it makes it pretty effortless to follow up with even more attacks afterwards. Minion is usually the best character in each game that he appears in, and he would be in this game too, if it weren't for the last entrant on my list. The final vehicle on my list, and the lone character within the God tier, is Sweet Tooth. Sweet Tooth is an absolute menace in this game. He has got to be the most overpowered vehicle that has ever been introduced throughout the entire history of the series. His special attack, the Henchman, sends out 3 ghostly clown heads that relentlessly track opponents down and harass them for seemingly forever. One use of this special attack can one-shot many characters in the game, only excluding those with the most armor of the cast. The only thing I can think of that is more overpowered than this is having a special attack that just randomly kills an opponent when you use it, which honestly isn't too far off from what Sweet Tooth already does in this game. Just ludicrous. Bonkers even. This leaves Sweet Tooth comfortably within his own tier above the rest of the cast as the best character in Twisted Metal 4. And here is a full look at my tier list. Just to reiterate, I believe that characters within each tier could be interchanged depending on playstyle, preferences, or just the situation you find yourself in. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to leave a like and consider subscribing for more content like this. It's quick, easy, free, and you can change your mind later if you don't like it, so why not? I also always read all of my comments, so be sure to leave your opinions in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.